In the previous game, the castle of Norwich was captured by the Covenant soldiers, mortal soldiers, under the command of General Jean-Luc Corvo, a vampiric knight of Barbarossa's. And within 2 nights, both Elysium and the Golden Goat Tavern in Norwich had been raided. The kindred, remaining neonates, the Scottish Toreador, Bruce Stewart, were all staked and executed, completing the occupation of the city, leaving only the local Tremere alive and intact. As this was going on, Nicholas, Argyle, and Katya departed the city south, and intent on going towards Canterbury. Before that, Katya had met with the Tremere envoy, James Quatermain, who had reported the Tremere had full cooperation with the Covenant, but on inquiry of Sybilla Moore, Katya was told Sybilla was persona non grata. And in her search in the city, looking into these vampire hunters, it seemed evidence suggested Sybilla had been captured. And so the 3 left, and on their travel towards Kent, between Argyle and Katya's efforts, they closed in on the hunters, and Argyle tracked the group to their camp, confronting the remaining 3 hunters, slaying 2 of them, crippling the 3rd quickly. Argyle found the staked Sybilla slung over the hunters' horses and freed her. After a discussion with her, Argyle found a safe retreat beneath some old trees' roots they could stay under for the coming day. By the time he returned, it was noted the 3rd hunter, Sister Isabella, was not present anymore. So now we open the scene. Argyle, you are still at the campsite. Sybilla is there. There are the 2 dead and drained hunters, low campfire burning, some trees not very far away, and this kind of stream or brook nearby. It's not very large, but the stream does open up a bit, widen, and form a decent current not very far away, and it looks like in a short distance there's even some white water. What do you do?
Follow the blood trail. There will be one.
Indeed, there is. The blood trail leads out of the camp and into the stream, and that's where it seems to end.
Does it come out the other side at all?
Not from what you can tell, but I'll take a perception investigation roll, standard difficulty. Are you using your eyes to see in the darkness any better?
Yeah.
Okay, then I won't make it any more difficult.
Standard, you said?
Yes, standard if you're using your eyes.
Since I'm tracking in the woods, could I argue for a perception survival?
I will allow that, yeah. That seems rational. You have a specialty there?
I do not.
Still, 2 successes is enough to find what catches your interest. You don't see the blood continue on the other side, but looking down the stream where it opens and doesn't quite make it to a river, but a deep brook that gets a bit deeper as you go, and you see something maybe 400, 500 feet away down the water. There is a dark something that is crawling out on the other side down there. It's low and it's moving slowly.
Clearly I need a close distance.
Alright, you follow the path, or the ground kind of following the water, and indeed, when you get close enough, you see the same woman, the hunter, you saw before, although looking even worse than she did before. Her crimson robes are dark and soaked through. The back is mutilated, showing much of her deep wounds and dark, almost black blood. She's crawling away. You can see the weakness in her arms. You can hear her saying something. Do you speak Latin?
I believe that I do, but let me make sure. Indeed, Gaelic, English, French, and Latin.
Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum, benedicti tu mene mulieribus. You recognize a Hail Mary being painfully chanted. She either hasn't noticed you or is in too much pain to turn around to acknowledge you, and she continues crawling away.
He's going to finish closing distance. In Latin, he will explain, Luke, it's not that I have anything against you personally, but your kind has a particular bent on annihilating mine. And if I thought you'd wander off and leave me in peace, that'd be it. But I'm no stupid. And I'm no longer naive.
You're kind of standing there in the water, which reaches almost knee depth for you, and she's maybe 10 feet away, crawling up a ravine out of the water, although she hasn't gotten very far, and with great pain turns and looks to you. You can see that she is totally soaked all the way, looking pale. I am but one soldier in the army of God. We are just the beginning of the fire that will cleanse this land of the damned.
Aye, that might be true. But you've seen my face. And you happen to know where I plan to sleep. And come the day, that's a liability I can't afford.
Before your time has come, you will know to fear our Lord in heaven.
I still try to be a good Christian. So, I'll take your confession if you'll give it.
She smiles in pain, closing her eyes, and you can see that she is clutching a rosemary close to her breast. I will not give you the satisfaction. I will not give a prayer to the devil's servant.
Argyle will do his best to offer last rites in that case.
What's your theology?
Just one.
It's been a while since you hear it, or you've heard it rather, but you muddle your way through most of it, you think. She seems to close her eyes and perhaps is waiting for it to end.
I'm trying to think of what would be the most painless way to end it for her. He doesn't have any medicine, so he doesn't actually know. I'm curious what that roll was.
She looks quite ready to die.
St. Peter will be your confessor then. May God judge you mercifully. And he'll go ahead and behead her.
Alright. No roll required, just not putting in defense up, and you have enough skill with, you're using you have a sword?
He does carry a short sword. I think that's a...
It's just idle curiosity.
Yeah. Well, it bears on things later on, I'm sure. But yeah, he'll use a short sword.
Okay. Her head is severed as easily as any of the many necks you've cut in the past. A small amount of blood spurts out as the head rolls into the water.
He'll fetch it and bring it back up to the wolves that are probably still feasting on her companions.
Hold just one sec. When you go to fetch her head, there's a burst of light from above you, all around you. It is bright and terrifying. You feel a fear that you have not felt in a very long time, not since you were a mortal. Katya and Nicholas, from miles away, you also can see a very unnatural column of light. It's brilliant. It's in vaguely the direction that Argyle went. You can see clouds forming overhead in that direction. I will need a courage roll, difficulty 9, Argyle.
I mean, regardless of the successes on that roll, he's still not going to stick around for that.
I was going to say, it's actually not enough successes. You initially try to hold up, but there is something beyond any power you're able to comprehend. Your fangs extend as you back away from this large column of light that is covering her body and her head going into the water. You will be taking, well, you can roll your fortitude against 3 levels of aggravated.
I thought she was cut off from her faith.
She was.
Huh. I'll spend a blood to auto-soak with fort.
Okay. So there's a sizzling on your skin as you resist some of the worst of this light getting out away from it. But your beast is certainly not pleasant or pleased with what this is and is fleeing away.
Yeah, well, that was... Man and beast both don't want to be near that.
Fortunately, you did not botch that roll. That could have gone much worse. You have no idea what becomes of Sybilla. You have no idea what becomes of anything as you run deep into the woods, agreeing and letting your beast take over briefly. Eventually, you come to somewhere deep in the woods. You don't know how far you've run or exactly how much time has passed by the time your beast relents. Your skin still burns. There's still a light sizzle coming off some of the flesh that was exposed. Of course, you didn't take any true damage. There is still a stinging. It has even reached some of your face and neck.
Do I hear the river at all?
No, you do not.
Can I get my bearings using intelligent survival?
Yes, you may. Standard difficulty. Oh, that was your roll. One success.
Yep.
You think you could figure your way back towards the hunter's camp. You think you're only about a mile away now.
That's not bad. So he'll pick his way back to see if there's anything left of Sybilla. She shouldn't have been anywhere near the light burst.
No, that was not even, well, almost a quarter mile away, maybe an eighth of a mile, something like that. So you make your way out of the woods, out of the rough, and back onto the kind of backcountry dirt path that leads to the fire, which is still going. It's very low. You can see Sybilla is already mounted up. She seems ready to go and perhaps in a hurry now. And you can see as she's turning to leave, she notes you coming out.
The hunter's equipment, their sword, the sword specifically, can I get near that now that it's no longer being wielded?
When you approach, you get that same sensation. The beast seems to recoil as you approach it.
What do I still want to try to approach it just to see if I can even grasp it without being burned, but...
Sure. I'll take another courage roll, difficulty 7. Alright, 3 successes. You are able to approach it and you can pick it up if you would like.
I would like.
You pick it up, and you will be taking an aggravated level of damage, or you can fortitude.
No soak?
No, you can do fortitude.
Okay. Is it automatic on contact?
On contact. Alright, 2 successes. It's almost like you were picking up fire itself. You instinctively drop it, as now your hand is sizzling, much like your body was earlier. You don't take any damage, fortunately, but that's... It's like picking up the burning end of a stick.
Can I throw a bit of cloth over it and try again?
You can try. You will need to make recurrent courage rolls just to keep possession of it. Oh god, what are you doing? What was that light?
God. Something. Thought this bit might be of use to someone. Shocked you're not more curious.
I know better than to go meddling with things that I should not. That is one thing we learned very early on where I come from.
I seem to remember you saying there something about something attached to the pommel.
I believe there was a rosemary beads attached to that as well. Or rather, you think it was probably gripped in the knight's hands as he was gripping the blade. That is still wrapped around the blade.
Can I pick up a large rock and smash the hell out of the rosemary or rosary beads?
You can try, but again, it's going to take courage just to approach it because it's by the weapon, and the weapon kind of protects it incidentally.
So it's coming off the weapon, not necessarily the rosary.
It seems like it, although you're no occult expert or theologian. It all seems just like one big thing that you should stay away from. And your beast knows that as well.
Bugger it. Is there anything other than that particular sword that can be rifled through, perhaps a knapsack or what have you? Specifically looking for notes or diaries.
It seems like all the supplies of value have already been ransacked, and Sybilla's kind of saddled up one of the horses with what she deemed most important. You can tell she's kind of got everything ready to go.
Well, you were thorough. Appreciated. Sorry it took me so long to get back.
Yes, well, I was not sure what was going to happen to you when I saw that light, so I thought better to make haste.
Well, when God sees fit to smite you down, you don't stick around to find out just how angry he is with you.
As I said, there is a reason House Tremere does not go to great pains to study them.
Fair enough. And he'll take the reins of the horse and lead it towards the hidey hole he found. Now, about the cost of your rescue.
Oh, here it is. She's begun trotting alongside you.
Luke, the fact of the matter is, you were as good as dead just now. But I'm not an unfair creditor.
I know you're not about to demand a life debt.
I mean, we can take you back down to Kent and see what they think.
Is that a threat?
Well, it's where you were going.
I am in debt to you. I will not argue that. A great debt, even, I would allow. Do not press your fortune. I was not destroyed, and there was yet chance for me to find a way out.
You were staked by 3 hunters.
So was Katya.
Aye, and I'd wager they learned from that mistake.
As did I. A major boon. Take it or leave it.
And Katya's life debt wiped clean.
She looks at you with some confusion. What did Katya do here?
Asked me.
That would be very generous of me, seeing as Katya did not come here herself. She owes me, and I owe you.
Very well. Question for you. How happy are you with Norwick? Do you mean to stay?
Happy, what do you speak of? And what happened to your face out there?
Which part of God deciding to smite me did you not catch?
I'm as happy as I may expect to be in this existence.
You're not answering another part of that question. Do you mean to stay in Norwick?
I do not have such liberties as choices of where to stay as you do.
No, but you've an offer in Durham.
Durham. The Lion's Gate Chantry. Are you a regent now? Do you decide where these things happen?
No, but I was there when Eve Kavanagh offered sanctum to the Tremor of Norwick. By my count, you're a Tremor of Norwick.
It was a political ploy. You would not understand the complications of a transfer from one chantry to another. There are many rules that must be followed and agreements. It is tedious to explain.
That's not a yes or a no, though.
The simple answer for you, Argyle, is that it is not as simple as what she may have described.
Well, pretend you're talking to a shite-eyed Scotsman with no concept of Tremor politicking. Could you transfer?
If I wanted to, and I was owed a debt by Garrett, then perhaps. But I have no such standing. I have some. I am not nearly as hated as that coterie would have you think. But I have no expectation that Garrett would let me leave.
See, because in my mind, a major boon is owed, and I have something in mind that fits the repayment.
And it's in Durham, I imagine.
Specifically in York. And Durham is a viceroyalty of York.
Well, perhaps if you manage to speak to my regent and convince him that I am needed in Durham more than I am in Norwich, you'll get your transfer.
How much does Garrett listen to you?
When it is in my field of expertise, he will listen it with at least one ear.
Good. In that case, coyly as you can, you're going to do two things. When asked, you're going to volunteer Elined singing for Prince of Norwich. Lobby on her behalf with your fellows.
She looks at you curiously. Lobby for Elined as Prince. Why?
That's for me to know. The other thing you're going to do is you're going to volunteer to bear witness at any Covenant Council meetings relating to Norwich.
I think perhaps you have me confused. I have not yet been invited to any council meetings of the Covenant.
Aye, but I like that last word, yet.
And why would the council have such high regard for me?
They might not, but they might. Might be I need a witness. So if asked, you're going to bear witness.
If for some reason the eldest princes in Britain ask for me to witness their meetings, I will agree.
And testify.
And testify to what?
The truth of what you saw. Inasmuch as your regent allows, obviously. I expect there's more than a few tricks I'm not aware of that keep particular secrets secret.
And what was it that I witnessed that should be attested to?
The truth.
Whose truth?
What you personally witnessed happen at Norwich. If I need you to lie, I'll tell you. But for the time being, I'm only asking for an honest recounting of what you know to have happened.
Very well. Under those particular circumstances, should they arise, I will provide my testimony. And I will lobby to my chantry and to my regent to support Elined as prince.
For as long as you're able, until she's dead. Since it doesn't exactly put you at risk, and it in no way requires a great expenditure of resources, I think that satisfies a major boon.
This is acceptable. I could have done worse, I suppose.
Hey, I'd have much rather had you in Durham. But given I'm a bit new at politics in Norwich, there's only so much that can be managed.
The chain of command of my house can be stifling at times. Yeah, this is it. This is the tree you mentioned before, isn't it?
Hey, you know, if you'd lighten up a bit, I think you'd be pleasant company on the road. He'll do his best to start making a reasonable bedding place under the tree.
I hate the road. It is filled with vermin and banditry and lupines and all manner of disease. The sun at any time.
And don't forget shite-eyed Scotsman. And he'll grin.
You're not nearly as charming as you think you are.
That's alright. I tend to grow on you. He'll wink.
Like a fungus.
Or a wart.
Fungi and warts are what I am more familiar with. There may be some down here. And she kind of gets down into the burrow beneath the roots. Seems to occupy herself. You're able to create a good amount of cover with some brambles, weeds, pulling in some bushes and branches. You create a good little kind of like a trapdoor burrow nest under these roots. It's pretty snug, very dirty. Sybilla complains a few more times about the cramped conditions and how dirty her torn up dress is getting, but it'll suffice for the coming day.
Right now, let's get cozy. He's not going to deliberately snuggle up with her, but he chuckles at the thought.
It's so cramped it's hard not to. And with whatever few inches of space remain, she pushes herself into the wall away from you. Meanwhile, Katya and Nicholas, you did see a column of light extend down over some thunderheads, a sound of thunder. It was brief, but very unusual. What are the two of you planning on doing for the rest of the evening, which is not much? It seems very late now, and you expect Argyle probably will find cover somewhere out there.
Find cover for themselves.
If he's still alive.
No time to worry about that now.
We will follow the markers he has laid out, whether or not to deviate. If he does not show up, we know his fate.
Nicholas is quite in agreement with this.
Alright, so the two of you are gonna find some cover. I think you actually have the carriage, so you're able to stay in there for the coming day.
Perfect.
With your well-paid carriage driver who does not ask too many questions about his guests. And the day comes and goes. You are all forced into torpor, into sleep, until the new evening comes again. Katya and Nicholas, do you intend to wait at the camp, or will you try and press on in the darkness?
Are we already at the marker that Argyle told the driver to head to?
That's true. You pointed out a marker, or I think Argyle did. So I'll say yes. By the time you awaken, you are in a slightly different setting. You're still out on the road, but you note the familiar terrain. I imagine maybe a tree with perhaps a few marks in it, not too far away. So you believe you're at the right spot.
Argyle will make his way to the tree in question as rapidly as they are able.
Yes, it wouldn't have been very hard to get the horses kind of staked down and out of the way. The wolves are well fed, so they don't really have any interest. And you're able to ride these 2 horses back to the meeting spot, Sybilla in tow, and with a fair number of belongings kind of heaped over the back of her horse, mostly mundane stuff, a few bags, tarps, blankets, maybe a couple satchels in there. And indeed, it's not very long before the 3 of you are rejoined. Katya and Nicholas, you see 2 riders crest the hill nearby, and the carriage driver stands up looking alarmed at first, but then recognizes Argyle. I'll find myself something to stare at over there. Kind of backs away from the strange group he's agreed to work with. Leaves.
Out of curiosity, how close to London are we right now?
Good question. Let's say not very far away at all. Been traveling 4 or 5 nights on a 10-day journey. So I'll say that you're, by this point, maybe a day's ride, or a day's carriage from London. It's maybe 15, 20 miles out. Roughly northeast.
So roughly around Chelmsford?
Yeah, something like that. You are starting to see a few more farmsteads and subsistence farmers, a couple parishes in the distance, very small villages or homesteads.
Did you miss me?
No. We saw the light show. What was that?
Suffice to say, lightning strikes in the strangest of places.
Lightning.
Do I still look a bit singed?
By this point, I will say no. You didn't take any true damage, and so it's mostly superficial markings that have healed by now. And the rest of you can see Sybilla bring the horse up and dismount. Yes, very eventful. Thank you all for coming out.
Yes, a bit more. I did not think we'd meet again so soon.
You. I know you. You're the one who spoke to me from that astral form. What are you doing here?
Saving your ass, it looks like.
She grimaces.
Indeed. I'm glad the hunters did not try to dispose of you.
I suspect they had more long-term plans. They seem to have somewhere to go to take people like me. Or us, I should say. She looks to you, Katya.
It wouldn't have been pleasant.
No, I should think not.
You should take joy in knowing that you are the only other one that has survived them.
I will take joy when I am far from here, far from the interest or sight of hunters, or those who slay them.
You keep talking like that, and I think you're starting to warm up to me.
She glares at you. Did you all come out this far just to find me? I doubt that.
Well, you happen to be on the way.
Only I came out. The others happened to just be on the same path.
How chivalrous.
That should be expected. After all, I did owe you a boon.
Which is still owed, as now I owe Argyle here.
That's so.
He is the one who saved me, and he is the one who I am indebted to.
Hey, if it hadn't been for that light show, I might have reconsidered.
Reconsidered what?
Who owed whom?
Yes, well, I am eager to be away from here. I do not think I need most of this, in fact. He looks back to the horse saddled with the belongings it is.
Well, he'll offer up his horse. Fancy a trade, then?
I'll leave you some of the blankets and tarps that I did not find interesting. She starts removing some of the baggage and the satchels. And as she does, some of the belongings come loose, and a small, simple twine string with a wooden cross falls out. And Argyle, I'm going to need a courage roll from you, difficulty 8.
Why me?
One success. Your fangs distend and you start to back away without intentionally meaning it. You start to gain control a few seconds later. You don't burst running again, but there's that same fear you felt before. You're reminded of the burning you felt, and all the rest of you can see this. This is his reaction to a small wooden cross falling out. You find it very hard to approach that horse while that cross is out now, Argyle.
I never knew you had such sensitivity to these artifacts.
I didn't used to.
Perhaps
I
that.
don't like it.
Perhaps that light show was more than just show. You did look a bit burned. And she kind of looks at you very clinically, very coldly, looking you up and down.
Let it brand you in any way.
Perhaps not on the surface. Most interesting.
What is it you see?
Nothing on the outside, but I have studied phobias, fears, things that cause the mind to repel and fear both among our kind and the mortals. It is a fascinating phenomenon. Some among our kind have repulsion to things that, honestly, there's no good reason to. Or perhaps Argyle found a reason. Or perhaps his beast did. Perhaps it will go away with time. Perhaps not.
Bloody well better.
Fascinating, Nicholas says.
Well, good luck with that. I am going to leave while there is still night to travel. I do not have the luxury of carriages.
Aye, Norwick's that way, and he'll point off in the general direction that Norwick would be.
I think I will stick to the roads. I am not much for this backcountry dirt travel. Oh, they're all dirt, but some are more travel than others. I'm sure we'll be seeing each other again at some point.
I am certain of it.
She takes the wooden cross that was starting to fall out from underneath one of the bags and hides it, looking with a cold, comforting smile towards Argyle, and then starts to trot off.
Next time you need company hunting up night mushrooms, you let me know.
She's soon out of view behind the tree line.
What was the details of your boon?
Well, everything goes to plan, you'll never know.
A life boon paid so simply.
Nothing was easy about it.
What, do you have her betraying her chantry or something?
Let's just say there's room for all to benefit.
As long as it was worth it for you. I would be surprised if this affliction ended quickly.
One can only hope. He's going to go about looking through what luggage she left behind.
It was mostly mundane things as I described. It seems that she did not pick up any of the weapons. Perhaps she had as much difficulty as you. There were some extra cloaks, extra sleeping blankets and sheets, things like that. They're very, very mundane objects. Doesn't seem to have left you with much treasure.
Where are their journals?
Argyle just chuckles. Well played. Well fucking played.
Any of these blankets? Which one was she in?
She was in a potato sack.
Ah, I see. Gotcha will look around for this potato sack.
Sybilla did not bring the potato sack that she was carried in.
Well then, we should continue our journey. Though, before we travel much further, it would be best to stop and get something to eat.
In a village, it seems exceedingly dangerous.
We're a day out from London. I'd suggest we go return there. Hunting will be better. A
Wonderful.
little bit less.
Nothing much more to say. We're all headed to London next, yes?
All right. You want to wait for day to travel? I assume.
I think that seems reasonable.
All right.
Unless somebody had more questions about the laser light show from on high.
How far was that from here?
It was quite a ways. It was 8 or 9 miles.
Well, Katya's not going to go out of her way to investigate that.
Oh, from here, actually, since you moved up, it was about a mile away.
If there's plenty of night and we're not going to travel, and a trip there and back is doable, Katya will be interested in going.
Yeah, on foot, it'll take you a couple hours round trip. You are able to roughly make your way in that direction. If you want to find the actual campsite, I'll need a wit survival roll. You saw approximately where it was, but you weren't there yourself.
I'm about to get lost in the forest.
You could.
You know what? Never mind. If Katya can't find it, then no. Just no.
The hungry eyes at the edge of the wood look disappointed.
Argyle has literally no interest.
Alright. Suffice to say, the night will come and go without event. And you will return to London the following day. And Elined, I believe you were meant to return to London fairly soon after your victory at Norwich, correct?
Yes.
All right. So I'm going to say that beating you by a couple nights, Argyle, Nicholas, and Katya make it to London, but you'll be joining them in the city very shortly after. And let's see here. There's a couple things to resolve. Your army will disband. They're not going to march 10 or 15,000 men into London.
Of course, that was her suggestion. They were going back to the meeting point and they go their separate ways.
Yeah, it will disband at St. Albans as you direct, and you will return with just your retinue of maybe a couple thousand soldiers back to London. Just managing to avoid the scrutiny of the nobles, you think just days away from arriving in Norwich themselves. And upon your arrival, what does Elined mean to do immediately?
Her first thought is to go make sure Gertrude hasn't been abducted.
All right. I thought that scene might come up. So you return to the city. Your retinue finds a place to stay at the inn, leaving you to go in search of your manor. Unfortunately, it is not the way you remember seeing it. What you see when you return is not a manor, but a ruin. There appears to have been a large fire. Stone supporting the foundation is intact in several places, but much is gone. There are rooms that you can see the outline of, but much is exposed to the sky and the air. Wooden roofing and the falls have burned away. There's debris of broken glass, splintered wood, and fallen brick. There are many piles of burnt bones and ash in here. And judging from the surrounding manors, it looks like most of the effort was preventing some fire from spreading rather than saving the manor itself. What do we see when Elined returns to the ruins of her manor?
Her jaw clenches quite tightly as she approaches what was once her home, trying to shift through what she can to find what hasn't been picked through by scavengers.
There are half-burnt remains of paintings lying shriveled. There isn't much of value left. As you're sifting through things, there is a sound that catches your attention. The sound of glass breaking under footfall, debris being stepped over, wooden boards, catches your attention. It does seem like someone's here.
She will turn her attention towards that direction, but have her hand near the hilt of her sword just in case.
From the darkness of one of these partially intact stone chambers that was once perhaps the salon, a woman steps forward in a brown cloak and comes into the light of the moon. My lady, is it truly you?
Can I see her face at all?
You can. It does look like Gertrude. She's got a cloak wrapped tightly about her and is kind of holding at herself protectively. My lady?
It is.
She keeps her distance, looking uncertain, unsure of what your reaction will be.
This does not surprise me, though. You still being here does.
I thank God that you were not here for it. The manor is in a bit of disrepair. There was an attack, my lady.
Yes, and I know the one who orchestrated it.
She takes a couple steps forward, looking sad and desperate, and I know not where they came from, as though they stepped out of the air itself, ma'am. Several of them with tools of violence. They cut down the household staff. They set fire to the foyer. It was awful. I thought it was my end.
She's scrutinizing Gertrude for a moment. Tell me. On which of my military excursions were you first accompanying me?
Oh, that was quite some time ago, ma'am. It was a mercenary excursion, I believe. It was that terrible mercenary captain who I was quite afraid of, but I saw the way you talked to him. It was the first time I saw ever a woman talk to a man like that, or that a man would listen. And you ensured that his men didn't lay a hand on me. That's when I knew I could follow you to the end, Mum.
Good. So you haven't been replaced. There are certain people who have the ability to change how they look, you see. That's how the assailants got here.
It's beyond my understanding, Mum.
What of the tenement building? Is that still usable?
I am not sure. I've been under the protection of my savior.
And who might that be?
She will look back into the darkness of the chamber that she emerged from as another figure emerges to join the two of you. And again, you see a woman step out, slender, clad in a charcoal gray hooded cloak. And as she lowers her hood, you recognize the light amber irises and the raven black hair, the severe expression. Good evening, my dear. It is well to see you.
Her jaw drops a bit. If it is truly you, it is an honor to see you as well. There was some business with the former Prince of Norwick, trying to impersonate you to get people to switch sides.
I had heard as much. Clever. I assure you, I am genuine. Though you look unwell, the beast is closer to the surface than when I last saw you.
That much is true. It has been quite trying.
These have been trying times for us both, it appears. It was perhaps arrogant to think I could defeat Mjolnir, even with our preparation.
Even with preparation, the most we could do was try to limit how many lives he took. And even then,
Small miracle any of you survived in truth. It was not my desire to leave as I did. However, I have made a respectable list of enemies during my time walking this earth. My danger did not end with that Methuselah.
have there been any others trying to hunt you down, or have you been relatively safe as far as pursuit?
I have remained discreet since then, until recently. I had intentions of reclaiming York. I returned here to reassume your vassalage. When I saw this erupting, I intervened.
Yes. Which... Which, by the way, this was conducted by an individual you may have known.
The priors, I presume. We struck
Aye.
several down.
And this... Their leader.
The Basileus I have heard about, whom I had not given much credence to. I do hear word that Sebastian has met his end.
Indeed, and Basileus is not his true name. He also went by two others.
She looks curious.
And in a more hushed tone to make sure people don't overhear. One was by the name of Godric. The other, was a name he abandoned. It was the name of Ethelred.
Her eyes widened ever so slightly. Briefly. Ethelred.
Apparently, he was the one supporting the individuals who wished to see you overthrown as well as increasing animosity between you and Barbaro.
I knew a prior named Ethelred long ago. She seems to pace in thought. In my time away, I have felt the anger towards Barbaros wane. I suspect Ethelred's agent had quite an enduring effect on my impression of my old coterie mate. I thought him dead. Ethelred, I mean. Her eyes searched the ground. Did you slay him? Did you find him?
I did find him, and he has been dealt with.
So he is Ash now. She looks to you for affirmation.
As much as I've been told, I was incapacitated at that moment.
And so he may yet persist in some way. It seems Britain is filled with ghosts, and history I'd rather forget. The white rose pricks my tunic uncomfortably. I intend to remove it and quit York. I no longer seek practice here.
That might be for the best. The new organization from the mainland has increased efforts here.
She nods. Yes, the Camarilla, I presume. I think I will quit all of Britain for the south. I'm sure the Camarilla is there as well, but there is too much in these islands. Too much past. She turns to you, looking more serious. By oath, I could compel you to join me. However, I would rather not draw resentment from one with such tenacity and guile. I would prefer instead we part as allies, and I hereby release you of your oath of vassalage.
For what it's worth, it has been a pleasure serving you.
A small smile forms on her lips. Last of the Gauntlet Lords, and indeed not a lord at all. You would have made a fine child. And she begins to step past you through the rubble, making her way out. If you repeat that to either of our clans, I will deny it.
I shall not repeat that phrase to anyone.
She raises her hood once more. I wish you well, my dear.
And to you as well.
And she continues on out, away from the ruins. And not long after, another cloaked figure emerges from the darkness of the hallway, her face hidden by a red hood, She was silent enough you would never have known she was there if she had not emerged, but she nods to you respectfully after following after Ragna.
She will nod in return.
The two of them disappear into the streets. What will you do now, my lady?
See if my business ventures are still intact. And report to the prince as I am supposed to.
What would you like me to do?
How many of our assets were burned? She is effectively trying to find out how many dots of her resources are gone.
Well... And she looks bashful, ashamed even, looking towards the ground, avoiding your eyesight. I have not gone and see the tenement building, but I'm afraid the chest of silver we had is well and long gone. The Lady Ragna bid me not present myself again after we left. I suspect the tenement building may be all that's left.
At least it is something for a starting point.
And out of character, you will be down to 2 dots of resources based on the passive income from your tenement building.
Alright.
And if you had any dots in Haven for London,
I had none.
well, saved you the work of getting rid of them.
Actually, that's a good thought. Could you check on the tenement building for me? While I go present myself.
Of course. I will go and see that it's in tip-top shape. You may find me there, my lady.
Of course.
She smiles, finding something to be useful for, and rushes past you to go off down the street in the direction of your tenement building.
And meanwhile, she will head to do just that. Go present her.
Alright, head in the direction of St. Mary's Undercroft. And we'll end the scene here and take a quick break and come back in 15. Alright, so Argyle, Katya, and Nicholas, you have just reached London not long after Elined, in fact just at her heels. What are your all plans for the city now?
First thing on Katya's mind is blood.
Even before presentation?
Yeah, I mean, she's really hungry.
Argyle is going to check in with David and see if he's had any visitors.
Okay. And Nicholas.
Nicholas has no plans but to wait for these other 2 yahoos when they're ready to announce themselves.
Alright. Argyle, you cannot help but notice as you walk through the city. Of course, there are chapels and churches all over. It's common for every city. And whenever a priest comes out with cross around his neck, you find yourself walking extra far around away from him. The crosses, particularly the ones that are worn or very prominent, definitely continue to give you significant unease. When you check in with your ghoul, David, he does not report any new guests or anything like that. Everything seems relatively stable in London, which is to say relatively unstable. There are still a lot of concerns with witches about and the clergy looking for them. There haven't been any riots recently, fortunately, but... Go ahead.
Argyle is going to give David Guy de Free's description and tell him to keep an eye out. He may come looking for a place to stay for a few days.
He agrees to look out for this man.
He's a proud man. He'll want to work for his keep. Sure, you've got no end of help you could use. Let him keep his pride.
I know the type. If he comes this way, I'll put him to work.
He's a good lad.
Anything else? You've been gone a while.
Not much. How's folks?
Scared. Unsure what tomorrow brings.
That's about par for the course, though, isn't it?
Aye, it is. I think there's maybe a new disease breaking out. People coughing up blood, they say. Mostly the poor districts, but there's fear it's gonna spread.
Would I know enough? Because survival. Would I know enough to advise that they boil water, just to be sure?
You don't have any medicine, but you have hearth wisdom, don't you?
I do.
Then yes, from your hearth wisdom, you know there are some home remedies of how to defend against ailments like that. And so yes, you would know some tricks like that.
Hey, that's probably nothing to worry about much, but best get word out. Folks should be boiling water and whatnot. Don't drink nothing that's not been purified properly.
That'll be difficult. Most folk around here, most of the ones you have me tend to, they get their water from the watered down ale. No one trusts the water around here. Wells are full of God knows what. Wouldn't drink that.
That'll do. Ale's been boiled anyway.
Aye. Well, maybe I'll try and encourage boiling it again.
But if they do drink water from the wells, they may best make sure it's boiled first.
He nods. Anything else?
I'll see if I can't scare up some brewery supplies. Maybe we start making our own ale, just to be sure.
I wouldn't mind that. Having some more stronger stuff around here. but you might want to keep it below notice. Some of the tavern keeps to get right angry with you.
Unless we undercut their suppliers.
Well, most of the folk you have me tend to, they're not exactly in a well-patrolled part of town. God's not gonna care if the barkeep sends some brawlers our way, so let's keep that in mind.
But we'll work it out.
Whatever you say.
And then Argyle will go and check on Elined's manor. I'm expecting him to find it in quite a state, but he's mostly concerned about the cat.
Indeed. You find it in quite a state of ruin. Doesn't seem to be anyone in there when you go poking around. But you can look for your cat.
He will.
How do you want to do that? You're using disciplines or just putting out tuna?
He'll start just mundanely trying to call the cat in.
Yeah, that will not draw forth your cat, Arthur.
Well, if that fails, then he will use disciplines.
Okay. What did you say it was? Manipulation, Animalkin?
I'm checking. Call the Wild is Charisma Survival.
One day I'll remember that. Did you
You were
feed him any
thinking
of
of
your
whispers.
vitae?
I don't believe so.
I didn't think so either. Alright, Charisma Survival it is. Alright. One success. Takes a while of you trying to summon, maybe after 10 minutes or so of efforts. You don't hear anything, but this scraggly looking creature that barely resembles a cat with a bent tail and frayed hair pops out from around a corner looking interested. There's a tiny little hole in the edge of his ear.
Here he is. Arthur, you scamp. He'll extend a hand and scratch his ears.
He seems receptive to that and kind of doesn't really nuzzle against you, but definitely seems at least warm and receptive, doesn't go away.
Now he will feed the cat.
Well, that definitely gets his attention. You can tell that in your absence he's not gotten any bigger or fatter. He's still very scrawny.
But he's feeding the cat blood.
Oh, I see. Well, that will go down just as easily, as the vitae is definitely intoxicated to animals as well.
And if he was able to scrounge any food from the hunter's packs, he'll feed the cat a bit of that as well.
Yeah, I'm sure you could have gotten out maybe some dried meat scraps and grits and such. And this cat seems interested in anything you have. Definitely seems to kind of do a couple circles around you, very interested in following you now.
that done, he will go and rejoin Nicholas and Katya.
Okay. And Katya, you were going to do something as well?
Feed.
How do you want to go about feeding?
Well, her blood pool is low, so she definitely wants to get someone isolated. She typically lures men into dark alleyways, so that's what she'll go about doing.
How many wounds do you have still?
It's all healed.
Alright, so you won't take any penalties from your appearance. Your wounds will have healed by now. And let's see here. Just want to look at one other thing. So one thing I've been neglecting is that those not on the path of humanity should have a much harder time blending in humanity compared to those who do and follow it. So trying to act like a human is going to be harder, given that you are no longer on that. You follow different morals. It makes you act different and look different, speak different, because humanity is foreign to you now. So if you still want to go about the same way of hunting, of kind of luring men in, like a woman of the night, that will be more difficult.
Of course, she'll use Mask of a Thousand Faces to get a proper look.
It's not just about how you look, though. It's about how you act. Behaving like a human is easier when you're on humanity.
Well, making it hard is fine. It's just temptation's at a -1 difficulty for Katya, so keep that in mind.
That is true. Let's see. That's at path level 8. I think you're not at 8.
Is it really path level 8?
That's for all paths. You start getting a bearing modifier.
Alright, never mind then.
Given that you are working towards temptation, I won't inflict the same difficulty. The only thing you still have to contend with are the clergy, which have not relented, and the patrols of guards.
Fair enough.
So I will take an appearance subterfuge roll, difficulty 8.
Difficulty 8. Okay.
Hunting on the street is still dangerous. And you are not finding any success, as you know to obey the domains and don't stray where you shouldn't. The places you try to hunt are just not coming up with anything. Fortunately, by obeying the tradition of domain, you avoid any encounters with Canaanites clinging hungrily and greedily to what they have. And you avoid any clergy or guards.
Well, she can't relent because she's only at 4 blood points, so she's going to maybe go more risky then.
Alright. Do you want to try hunting in domains you know are not your own, but might be better feeding? Or how do you mean more risky?
Yeah, sure. That.
Alright, I'll lower difficulty to 6. But I'm gonna roll a chance die.
She is disguised at least. Or do you need a mask roll for that?
No, I'm not worried about whether or not you have a mask on. I assume you'll probably get that on.
Alright. Only one of those supposed to go through. 2 successes.
Alright, you'll be able to find 2 people over the second hour of your hunting that you'll be able to feed from without anybody seeing you.
Alright, 2 blood points from each then. Of course, she might be low enough to tempt a frenzy.
That's true. If you're at 4, the taste of blood, well, are you stopping? Are you going to try and, no, because you're on instinct, so you wouldn't be able to stop. Your beast is going to kill these people. You're going to drain at least the first one dry. Unless you want to try and gain control of it and attack someone else. I don't know if that's that much better, but it's up to you how you want to handle that. If you let the beast go, it'll just exsanguinate this first man that you manage to tempt into following you down a dark alley in one of the nicer parts of town, I'll say.
Yeah, she can't fight it at all, huh?
No, you can roll to control it, but that won't stop the frenzy. That's just going to need you to redirect it.
Well, life is not the concern. Leaving a mess and questions and bodies is. But, situation's, desperate. Alright, yeah, she'll just go ahead and sanguinate the first one.
Alright, your beast relishes in taking every drop of life from this man. Fortunately, since you have some control over it, you don't go on a murderous rampage after that. And you have enough control that the second one you feed on won't be an issue. Are you just going to leave this bloodless body in the back streets?
It's a nice part of town. That wouldn't be smart. Whose domain is it?
I'll take an intelligence politics roll if you want to figure out whose domain is it. You are in the domain of Mordecai Benjamin, Seneschal to the Prince.
Oh, wonderful. What options are there for disposal?
The kind of back street you find yourself in is like many you've been in before. It's narrow and winding, it goes on for quite a ways. High stone and wooden buildings on either side. It looks very dark, so there's a lot of rubbish and bags of trash, old boxes, discarded belongings. There's someone who's actually asleep in a corner, passed out. You don't think they saw you. They were kind of around a corner, but they're not very far away. It seems like even in the nicer part of town, there's still people who have nowhere to go. You're not very far from an outlet onto one of the main thoroughfares that connects to the road leading to the Tower of London. So I'll say there's 2 to 3 story building kind of overlooking this dark shadow you've drained this man in. But there are no lights coming out from either side, so it doesn't seem like anyone's awake or watching.
Are there any buildings that would have looked not occupied, or anything the body could be hid?
It's hard to say since there's no lights coming from any of these buildings. There are many doors you could try going into. You're reminded of, I think, it was either London or Norwich, but you were in a very similar back alley like this before when you went into the back room of a tenement building and found the hunters. So similar situation, there are back doors like that.
Okay.
You suspect most of them are probably occupied, but probably sleeping. This place is too dense to have any totally unoccupied tenement buildings.
Well, at this point, she'll enter obfuscate and pick up the body, and also cloak the body as well as herself.
Alright, with your enhanced strength you can definitely do that. Where do you discard it?
Preferably outside of this guy's domain, if there's not something like a sewer, or maybe like a wild colony of feral dogs to throw it to.
You'd have to drag it quite a ways away from here to get to a place like the Rack, where you'd find feral dogs running around in packs. There would be closer access to the sewers. Yes, I'll say that you could take it out of this domain and find a sewer entrance. Kind of a grate that you managed to lift aside. It's heavy, but with all of your strength, you're able to budge it out and push it with some leverage and dump them down there.
And she'll leave it at that.
Alright. The second man that you feed on is not nearly as bloody or much of a hassle to deal with. You managed to leave him alive, I assume. Unless you just want to kill him for the heck of it.
Normally she would, but she already got one in, and it's already a very dangerous city. Doesn't want to leave any footprints. So she'll just take 2 more blood and just enjoy the sensation of enhancing her physical body.
Alright. I'm actually going to make a couple rolls as the Seneschal has eyes on his domain, even when he's not there. Alright. As you're coming out of the alley, having freshly fed on the second man, feeling sated, you find an individual turning the corner to greet you. He's dressed quite sharply in long trousers and a fine dark doublet. You can see a nice white collar around his neck, well-groomed, short, dark brown hair, and very pale. And I believe Katya has her mask on. I didn't make you roll for it, but I assume you kept it on.
She does.
The man kind of folds his arms, looking to you. Well, well, well. Someone's been in alleys that they shouldn't be. Think you belong in the rack. Miss, what was your name?
Look, I am sure this is just a misunderstanding.
A misunderstanding on your part. Certainly you have no clue whose domain you're in.
It was... Whose domain exactly?
Why, none other than the Seneschal, Mordecai. Your name, miss. I'm going to need to know who to alert Mordecai is now owed a debt.
And what kind of debt would it be?
Well, that's between you and Mordecai. Who knows how much mess you've created with your... He kind of looks you up and down. Your, indiscretion with the men. I just hope you haven't left any bodies around. The debt may increase if some are found.
Nonsense. I am nothing but discreet.
Then I'll ask for your name a third time.
Oh, very well. I can tell the Seneschal.
Out of character, I'm thinking... She is disguised, but...
I can tell you're thinking very carefully about what name to give. Let me save you the time and not lie. Or that will make this a much different conversation when Mordecai finds you. The truth will get you in the least amount of debt, my dear, I assure you.
Very well. I am known as Katya.
Katya. Not a name I'm familiar with, but there are many of those. I will ensure that Mordecai knows whom to draw debt from. I trust you know the way out.
I will.
And he'll step to the side, watching you carefully.
So let's take off to go to Elena's manor.
Okay. I'll say it's around this time that you run into Argyle coming back from the manor, followed by a very scraggly looking cat.
So is the manor in view right now?
In the distance behind him, you can see the rubbles of where there used to be a manor you remember there being.
Well, at this point, Katya, of course, discards her disguise.
There's not much to find there.
I see. So they got to her.
Hard to say. Manor's in ruin, but I don't know that it'll suit either of us to go sifting through the ruins.
Katya will shake a little bit. I suppose we need to make our presentation.
Best wait for Elined to get back. Do it all at once. I figure if we come back here once or twice a night, she'll pop up.
In the meantime, I would like to pick through these ruins. I have nothing better to do.
He'll sniff a bit. Suit yourself.
That's what Katya will do. Her main goal is to see what happened to her reagents.
Alright, anything in particular or just general supplies?
In particular, the incense and the dried bones.
Alright, I will say that after a good investigation, that incense is definitely burned up. The dried bones have held up a little bit better. If for no other reason, then you can find some new dried bones, as the fire did an excellent job of drying them out. Mostly of the household staff that are very dead.
All right.
And it seems like no one's come around to clean up their ashes or bones yet. So, yes, dried bones you have.
Well, hey, she'll take what she can then.
Wasn't Nicholas staying at that manor?
Yes.
Yes, you were.
Was.
And your research area was in the basement.
Oh, Lord. So he would have, like I said, he was waiting for Katya and Argyle. When they're ready to go over there, he would go with them.
Oh, to the manor? I thought you were talking about the prince.
Yes, because they're all going to go to the prince together.
I'm sorry, then yes, you will be coming up right behind Katya, catching up to this scene.
He is disappointed. Not angry so much. He didn't have that much down there, but his books especially are a great loss. He doesn't care about the life that was lost here.
Nicholas, remind me, the old tome that you were studying before, was that left at Elined's Manor?
The cursed one? No.
That was lost at York, wasn't it?
Yeah, he left it in the burning building at York.
That's right.
Someone else found it. These are his anatomy books from Araby that are burned
I
up.
believe that Katya went and retrieved that book.
That's right. You're correct. I'm remembering now. Alright. Yes, it looks like much of the basement's been caved in, filled with rubble, stone bricks, and fallen wooden support beams. There's nothing left of your research there.
That means he's going to have to start all over again. That is disappointing. But he will return to the others, not making mention of it. Unless asked, specifically.
I take it what you two sought was destroyed.
My notes and books.
Argyle will point at the cat. No, he's fine.
I wish my notes could have run and hide like a cat can.
Maybe you should train him better.
What happened to the occult tomb?
Who's she asking?
Nicholas?
Did she leave it in his care? I don't remember that happening. I know that he helped her with it, but that's about it.
No, it would have been in Elined's manor.
Well, there's Vukar's answer then. Yeah, I was there. It's twice they tried to be burned and probably not worked.
I should take a second to look.
You hear that voice in the back of your mind, Katya. Yes, my child, I smell something here. Deep and buried it is. Still alive. It is under much rubble. But it lives yet.
Very good. And she'll go to where she kept it last, and if there's tons of rubble in there, she'll start digging.
The amount of rubble that you're digging through would take many days of non-stop digging. You're not going to get to this in one night, or even several.
Hmm. This may have to wait for another night. Unless there's some way she could pinpoint it more to not have to clear out all the rubble, but just a few pieces, or...
Well, you recall the space that you left it in was over the basement, and so if it fell inwards underneath into the space of the basement, it could be 15, 20 feet deep beneath you.
Fair enough. Much rubble it is. Just not going to worry about it now. It's safe.
All right. Then you go in the direction of the prince, or the court, rather.
I think the plan right now is for everyone to wait for Elined.
That was Argyle's suggestion, unless somebody presents a rational argument to not do that.
You can do that.
Of course, seeing that her manor is in ruin and there are no servants, perhaps we should see if she has come into the city already.
We're a few days ahead of her. It'll be at least a day or two before she arrives.
Fair enough.
As long as we don't do anything stupid like hunting someone else's domain or drop in on the... Well, no, even if we dropped in on Elysium, it wouldn't necessarily raise any hackles for us holding fire on presentation for a day or two.
Then perhaps we should await at Elysium. At least that's where I plan on going.
Fair enough.
It appears we have no choice.
Yeah, at least that way it doesn't look like we're trying to hide from anyone.
We should at least let Ambrose know that we're within his city.
So indeed, presentation first. Or do you just know that it will happen when we show in Elysium?
Sure enough, he'll hear about it if we poke our heads in there. Presentation's more a formality at that point.
Very well.
Gotcha will begin heading towards Elysium.
All right. For the sake of story, I'll expedite the presentation unless someone wants a scene in particular with Ambrose or in Elysium, specifically before Elined gets there. I'm going to say a couple nights pass before you're expecting to run into her. Alright. So a couple nights pass, you present yourself, the prince is aware of your return and expects very anxiously that Elined will be here soon to give a full report, as he's not going to wait for, or he's not going to take a report without the field marshal. But he allows you to stay for the couple days in anticipation. And sure enough, as the three of you go on your third nightly check of the ruins, you are approaching, and there are people, on the street passing by here and there, as there always are. So there are still people on the streets, but one of them you see is Elined. Seems like she just is now leaving her ruined manor. In the distance, you think you can see Gertrude running off in the opposite direction.
Argyle approaches with a cat in tow.
And Katya will not be far behind.
She stares at you with quiet menace.
I see you've come back from your travels relatively unharmed.
Relatively. Though not so much travels. Never made it to Canterbury.
Any particular reason?
An abundance of caution.
Have you given any of your reports to Ambrose yet? Or have you been waiting for me?
He wouldn't hear it. Was him wanting to wait for you.
Very well.
Were you able to discover what happened here?
I think we all know quite well what happened here. Priors.
It's good to hear that. It's good to see that Gertrude survived, though.
Yes, it is very well. A very good thing she survived. It's quite fortunate.
I've always thought she was a strange choice of ghoul for a field marshal. Perhaps you'll tell me that story sometime.
Well, considering she was a servant, and that's the same background I came from, I can appreciate the work one puts into it.
It was a bit less spectacular than I expected. All the same, I'm sorry about your manner.
Material things can be regained. It is unfortunate, yes, and it is mildly irritating. But I still have the tenement building. I will be able to come back from this.
Well, Ambrose is anxiously awaiting your counsel. should not keep him waiting any longer.
That is indeed where I was heading.
Alright. So the group of you, I imagine, just travel straight to the Undercroft. There are a few Canaanites at court here. You can see some of them speaking to Mordecai, who sends them away, waving them away. The prince steps down from his dais as he sees the group of you approach. The court's otherwise cleared of neonates and others, leaving just the group of you with the seneschal and the prince. Elined and her council return. Come before me. Tell me what you have seen.
Very well. We outnumbered them by quite the significant margin. So victory was essentially assured. An interesting note, apparently the Norwick prince took to disguising himself as Prince Ragnar in order to get people to defect, with mild success.
Seems consistent with his desire to sow discord in the Covenant Council. Go on.
Well, he is no more, thankfully. The kindred of the city are no more outside of House Tremere, which, interestingly enough, has decided to plea for their survival. They say that they are going to be 100% or mostly loyal to the Covenant, as loyal as a Tremere can be, at least. However, how that is handled is not my decision to make. It seems like quite a decent bit of leverage to use on them. As for the matter of Basileus, who also went by Godric, and also went by Ethelred a time before that, he has been dealt with. However, the matter of which is one I cannot attest to. I was incapacitated at the time.
Then how can you speak to him having been dealt with?
She will look over to her companions. I believe this is where your attestments come in.
His stony gaze turns to the rest of you, slowly.
Nicholas is going to defer to Argyle, who is clearly more charismatic.
Argyle is going to pull the ring, silvered onyx ring, and offer it up towards the seneschal. He expects to be questioned directly, but he's not going to volunteer anything that's not asked.
He takes it from you and looks at it. Sebastian bore this ring. Evidence enough of his passing. Were you able to ascertain if this prior of many names was the same Sebastian? Was a different entity?
We weren't. The Anarchs destroyed Sebastian before we could question him thoroughly.
And from whence did this ring come?
From the corpse. Well, the ash left over after the Anarchs destroyed him.
Take a manipulation subterfuge roll.
Literally none of that is a lie.
You are mincing words, and technically the ring came from Basileus.
Who got it from the ash?
There's that mincing of words again.
Just leaving out a step, that's all.
It's lies by omission.
It is.
You said what?
Standard.
With the roll. You said manipulation or charisma?
Manipulation. And subterfuge.
Sad.
From the ash, you say. That seems well prepared for an answer.
I presume it was taken from his ashes.
And where did it really come from?
Oh god, there's no point in hiding the truth.
We were unable to secure Ethelred. We were unable to bring sufficient forces into the Prior's warrens in order to force them into direct combat. When Elined was filled, there was no hope of success.
And you sought to deceive me. Why?
More to save face for her. I figured you'd ask. Wasn't going to lie to you. Mostly was just hoping you'd take the ring for what it was.
So you consider me a fool?
No, I figured you'd assume. If I'm presenting you with Sebastian's ring, or other than the head of or the fangs of an elder.
And from whence did this ring truly come from?
A bargain. That was Ethelred I lied to. In exchange for our lives. We'd spin a yarn.
And imply his destruction to allow him to leave.
Aye, but as I said, I expected I'd be asked, and I, not believing you a great fool, figured we'd be at this point eventually.
And so...
But forewarned is forearmed.
Forewarned. And he very quietly crushes the ring in his hand. Forewarned is what you sought to deprive me of.
Not at all.
Were I to take you at the words you gave, I might have assumed Basileus was removed. I'm gonna roll frenzy check for him. You can see as he's talking, you can see the fangs distended now. What resources have you concentrated in the domain of London?
Modest herd. And a ghoul.
What is the name of your ghoul?
David Remington.
He looks over with a glare towards Mordecai and makes a faint gesture with his hand. Mordecai departs. Your herd is mine. Your ghoul is dead. If I have you lie to me again, I will destroy you. Do you understand?
Aye. On a different note, we were able to destroy the 3 hunters who captured Kachi and were stalking Covenant domains.
The hunters are a fire best left untouched, lest they catch and grow in size.
They had taken one of the Tremor from Norwick,
And that
and in
is
order
the
to
concern
preserve.
of the Tremere of Norwick, not any of us.
Aye. But they did take a Cainite from your domain.
These hunters, they are not like nobles or clergy. The more we feed them by fighting back, the worse they become. Look around you. Look at the streets. There's a Grand Inquisitor in Britain because of our indiscretion. The more we strike at them, the greater the mortal threat becomes. You do not earn my favor or respect from slaying hunters or tracking them down. And now I hear that this Basileus Ethelred, whatever he calls himself, will continue to be a threat from the shadows. He grits his teeth and starts to pace away. Is there any more ill news I would hear this night?
Yes, my lord, Nicholas says.
He
The
turns-
child of Rob... Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, he turns slowly to regard you.
The child of Robert de Vere has been destroyed by my hand in Norwick. As a traitor.
One less foolish Cainite to bring more ruin upon the rest of us. He looks back to Argyle.
I do not wish to trouble you further, my lord, but we have underestimated the threat in Norwick. The Warrens are crawling with priors more than the city could probably tolerate. And he is their absolute commander. They have laid the place with traps and magic the likes of which I have not seen before. We had no chance of success.
We will send what we need into the Warrens. There are neonates enough clawing for an opportunity to prove their worth. We can send as many as we need. These mercers must be dealt with. Decade, perhaps 2 decades ago, it would have been a trifle to hunt down the mercer clerk, the Slade, his council, bribe them or coerce them, employ the gifts to break up his company and end this. But now with the fires of the Inquisition, the scrutiny upon the mortal institutions, there are too many great cities and elders falling to hunters and clergy. With each passing night, the shadows that conceal us grow thinner. I think we have spent as much influence amongst the nobility as we may for some time. I have been in communication with the Council on these matters, and we are in agreement. The Council fears the window to decisively destroy Basileus without revealing ourselves to the Kine has closed. At least for now. He seems to wait a moment, letting that sink in. He looks to Elined after a tense few moments have passed. In truth, I know not what will become of the Covenant. But for now, I will entrust that you will recruit a force to scavenge the warrens in Norwick.
Of course. And to handle the magical side of things, the Tremere there did claim they'd be loyal to the Covenant. It would be an excellent way to test them.
Leverage that. Recruit who you need amongst the neonates. Promise what you need to. Half of them, I expect, will perish.
Though, as fair warning, this Ethelred, as he was known, he was threatening to completely economically ruin Britain.
If he has the sway over the Mercers we fear he does, then he may be able to at least partially complete that. And with our influence spent amongst the Kine, battling this may prove difficult. The rest of you may be called upon to answer for this, for the defense of Britain against whatever it is Ethelred has planned. I must go and consider our options and begin transcribing a message to the other princes. He looks away from you all and gestures you off dismissively.
Well, Ned will curtsy one last time and head out.
Nicholas nods and follows.
Ambrose departs.
Gotcha. Well,
Eventually, you all find yourself leaving Westminster Palace, coming up out of the Undercroft, leaving through the halls.
before Kacha leaves completely, did the Seneschal step out?
He left some time ago.
Okay. As long as they didn't intersect.
No, you would note that he gives you a couple looks of you're not sure what, but you definitely had his attention during that. But yes, you now are away from court and back in the streets. What do you mean to do?
It might be good for us to move on to Canterbury now.
Hey, it might be at that. Apparently there's nothing else for me here.
We'll wish to stay out of his way. At least until he calls us again.
But if we're in Canterbury, don't know that he has much authority.
Regardless, I'm glad you came out of this looking no worse for the wear. He looks over to Elined.
It admittedly went a bit better than anticipated.
Hey, about that. When they go asking for volunteers or recommendations for claimants of praxis in Norwich, you're gonna speak up.
Am I?
Hey. There's that boon you owe me.
Of course.
Don't worry. I've got a pretty good feeling that the tremor there will back you.
I certainly hope so. Though part of me believes there's just going to be one giant trap. The Tremere side of things, I mean.
The fact of the matter is, you're gonna be there for a while anyway. There's no reason not to claim praxis.
I suppose. Well, while you lotter about your travels, I will try to gather what forces I can here. And of course, have that armor repaired.
See, the Ferrotep mentioned he was freed by you and someone else at a place called the Path Tumulus. Any chance you might be able to point that out on a map?
I'd be able to. But I had assumed they have long since quit that place since their enemies found out the location.
From what Neferotep said, someone still maintains it. Invited me for a spot of tea, as it were.
Interesting.
Well then, Nicholas.
Nicholas will turn to Katya.
Until we are summoned, shall we continue this research?
I will not say no to that. But did we not have business in Canterbury first?
With the hunters intercepted, I do not have much reason to go there. Did you have business there?
Not I. He'll look to Argyle.
Recent developments. This apparent issue with religious iconography. I don't know if Canterbury's where I need to be.
Very well then, I suppose I'm free to continue.
I do wish I could study your condition more.
Though, admittedly, as far as the map is concerned, I promised a certain individual I would not give out that location.
Aye, and the certain individual that you're protecting told me to come visit. So...
No, a certain individual's friend told you to go visit.
Do you really think, of all the people you could protect him from, I'm the one who's the risk?
No, I do not think of all the people I can protect from you're the risk, but he is not too keen on visitors. I am uncertain if you will come out of it unscathed.
Well, apparently, the ancient dead king told him to expect me. So, there's that.
Very well. I'll look over at Nicholas. You're aware where it is. We went there once before.
I know where it is. Dionysus himself is not unknown to me, though we have never met.
And you have your way there, it seems.
He'll cock an eye at Nicholas. Had you meant to head for Bristol?
He looks to Katya. No.
You don't need to write it down, just point it out on a map, I'll find it.
Wait, you're going to Bristol or Bath Tumulus?
Bath Tumulus, is that not in the direction of Bristol? Not that
It's
Argyle
like
should-
right next to each other, yeah.
Ah.
They're super duper close. Less than a night's ride to and from.
I can assure you, I have no intention of going to that prince's domain.
Very well, I can tell you where it is at least.
That'll do.
And Nicholas will tell him the location of Bath Tumulus in relation to Bristol. I just hope this dead king of yours is true to his word.
Well, if nothing else, I can imagine worse people to go and offer service to.
And I wish you good luck in your endeavors. The Cappadocians can be difficult to deal with if you're not of an intellectual bent.
You know, I was just telling someone the other night, trying to turn over a different leaf.
Careful about turning over this leaf. You might find it's covered in worms.
As long as it's not covered in fire and brimstone, I think it'll be fine.
Do you now? Well then, there's that.
I'll be about the city for a little while. Wouldn't do for me to just up and disappear after a unpleasant meeting with the prince. Oh, and if you do need someone to speak on your behalf at the Covenant Council, Sybilla Moore is more than happy to speak on our behalf.
I assume that was aimed at Elined.
Yep. Sorry.
I will keep that in mind.
Do you have any plans for clearing out the rubble that was your manor, Elined?
I would like to see what remains of my things, though I do not hold much hope. I am certain most of the valuables have already been picked through by scavengers.
At least whatever was in the basement is buried. I may certainly be willing to help you out. Though, I assume you are going to seek workers or something of the sort.
I have limited funds right now, but I will see what I can do.
I see. What Katja plans on doing in these next few nights is to assist Elined in. She doesn't have many resources of her own, but maybe she could. It seemed too odd if she just assisted. But maybe she could try to get workers at a fairer price.
So you want to negotiate with some laborers to help remove the debris?
Yeah.
Okay. What are everyone else's plans for the next few nights or beyond?
Elined intends to see how many neonates she can round up for this force.
Debating. Nope. Argyle is going to make sure his face is seen for a couple of nights. And then he'll probably quietly depart.
And she will also try to focus on trying to recenter herself with her past.
Alright. Argyle, a couple pass-throughs of Elysium to get yourself seen does seem like you get a few looks, a few sidelong gazes as people whisper. Maybe they're whispering about you, maybe it's just what it looks like. It's the goings on, the gossip of Elysium. Hard to say. But soon enough, you are on your way out. And Elined, you're recruiting from Elysium to get neonates to go explore the depths of the Norwick Warrens. Trigger all the traps. I mean, look into the tunnels. I'll take a... Well, are you doing anything specific to recruit them or entice them?
It would be a chance for them to prove themselves to those above them, to show their worth.
Give me a... Oh, let's go Charisma Expression. Difficulty 5. There's a lot of desperate neonates out there.
Would it be difficulty 6 because of my path rating? Since that deals with commanding.
No, because you're not commanding them. This is more of a sales pitch. Go to new places, meet exciting new people. Learn what Aqua Fortis is.
As much as it hurts me for someone who went to art school, work for exposure!
3 successes. Yeah, absolutely. You find 3 coteries worth of neonates that are eager and willing to prove that their coterie is going to make a name for themselves, that they're different than the rest, and they intend on proving it so that when the elders take notice, they'll be given positions of power and status. They don't say that so much as that's what you get. And yes, you have several coteries willing to go where you say and do what you say. There's even a bit of rivalry between them already.
If I go to another one of the cities, can I try to recruit more?
I don't see why not.
And how many individuals are in each coterie?
I'll say anywhere between 3 to 5.
All right.
So you're going to recruit some more?
Another city, yes. Just let me look at a map real quick and figure out which cities would be along the way. Because they have quite a or had quite a few of priors down.
There are no major cities between London and Norwick, but you could do some traveling for a few weeks to build up your horde of neonates and fledglings.
She will do that.
At some of the Elysia you go and recruit at, You get some looks of concern, some looks of disbelief. Perhaps some of the older neonates or Ancilla know exactly what you're sending these neonates to go do, and they revile you for it, but they aren't about to save these neonates from their fates either. They just look with some disgust quietly. But after a number of weeks, getting into early and maybe even middle of fall 1457, I'll say you have 10 coteries, or maybe close to 40 vampires from the major Covenant cities willing to delve the depths, coming from all corners of Britain. The word on the street is that without a prince, with the recent eradication of the Norwick rebels, all of these positions of power, all of these old institutions that used to be controlled, the domains, they're all open. And that's something that neonates could take, something that isn't hoarded. So it's gotten them excited about this kind of repopulation of Norwick. Perhaps if they succeed, they'll gain some status in the city, climb that way. Anything else from Elined?
Realigning herself with her path, which I know is going to take quite a while. And trying to get that armor repaired.
Alright. Regarding your path, out of character, game-wise, mechanics, it's going to be whatever your current rating is equal to experience. So if you're trying to go from like 3 to 4, it'd be 3 experience, and so on. In game time, I think it will take... I might leave that up to Elined, how long she feels is needed to get back to basics and to feel like she believes in the ethics again. Maybe this exercise in directing neonates to their doom could reassert her sense of authority and purpose. I'll let you decide what's appropriate there. As for the armor, getting it repaired, normally, if you had the resources you had before, it wouldn't have been that big of a deal, as your chest of silver was quite considerable. Unfortunately, this isn't just any armor. It's not exactly plate armor, but it's not far from it. It is expensive, it's somewhat exotic, and it is not going to be cheap repairing this. Good armor in this day and age is very expensive. I'll have you roll your resources at difficulty 9 to come up with the funds from your tenement building business. Oh wow. Well, fortunately for you, your small apartment is actually doing very well. Tenants are paying on time. It's essentially fully booked. And because you put in the effort to refurbish it earlier, everything's well kept up. So your apartment complex pays well enough, and you are able to find a very experienced blacksmith in London who's able to remove the plates and the kind of like lamellar bands and reset them, putting in new leather straps, and he will have your armor repaired. It'll take a little bit of time, but by winter 1457 it'll be done, and as good as new.
All right.
Okay. And then we have Katya and Nicholas, I believe. And you were also traveling. And describe to me more about your travel plans, where you want to go, and what your goals are there.
Hoping Bashta has a more insight on where to go exactly.
Consulting with this dark presence that seems to follow you, you do get directions to a few places, a few individual... How do I describe this? Spots in Britain that you should investigate. He vaguely alludes to this being important to securing your future power and solving and avenging the death of your sire. He tells you to expect violence, however. The places he's sending you to are temples, not to Christ or any of the other commonly expected gods, but to older religions, pagan, the old gods, the things that Christians would just as soon send their hunters after. And he tells you to be prepared to battle against these cultists.
Well, this bit of information is very important because her and Nicholas will by no means be able to accomplish this. And she doesn't really have status or pull to recruit neonates. So, perhaps, well, this certainly will have to wait. But she may have to work favors in a city. Well, all the neonates are already busy, so perhaps this will just have to wait overall.
Certainly the neonates most desperate to gain some status or domain or a name for themselves. Those ones were the first to answer Elined's call that she has not exhausted Britain of its neonates, though.
The neonates she got, were they from all over or mainly London?
They were from all over, some from London, some from Bristol, some from Chester. Lincoln. Even Carlisle.
These are pagan sites.
That is what you're told. Bashta insists this takes precedence now that you are free to pursue this. He does not expect them to be defended by vampires either. They're merely mortals. Cut them down.
Well, she certainly will have to seek a coterie and, of course, a group of ghouls, or maybe makes a group of ghouls, something of this nature. So she will be focusing on this. Doesn't want to leave unprepared.
Okay. What do you tell Nicholas during this time?
She'll tell him that she was able to peer into sites of interest. However, there is much danger at them. She is going to spend a considerable amount of time gathering a coterie and ghouls that would be willing to serve in this task.
So how long is Nicholas going to be stranded in London then?
Depends on the success of gathering a force where they're not just going into suicide. How long would that take?
We'll start with the ghouls. Are you just kind of looking for brawlers? Do you want knights specifically? Will any peasant do?
Brawlers, thugs, those that could easily be convinced to work and murder, because this really is murder. And knights, I don't think that's really available to Katya. Maybe she could think of something, but I don't know.
There are definitely knights in London. You will find knights traveling to the Tower of London, the castle there. It's just kind of, the only reason I ask is because depending on who you look for, it might change how much time it takes. Similar to hunting, you have to be careful with how much you expose and how quickly you go about this. And again, you can't just take people from other people's domains, pose the same risk as hunting. So that's just kind of going to take some time to do safely. And as an Ansel, you'd recognize that. So what I'd have you do, well, first I'd like to know, how do you want to recruit these people? Are you telling them they'll get paid later? You promise them with occult power or old gods and dark gifts that they might receive later? Like, how do you want to entice them?
If occult power was an option, it would be certainly very selective on the individual. Very cautious picking of that. That's an option there, though thugs may not be too interested in that, but maybe like a show of the power possible could convince them otherwise.
Thugs will be interested in women, money, and land. Mostly money and land.
She can at least promise that there is much to gain in payments. These places they're going to rob will have much loot. Even if that's true or not, she'll tell them that.
Alright. Alright, give me a manipulation, and I'll take expression or subterfuge, your choice. And standard difficulty. Every success will be a recruit. And I'll say each roll takes about a month, or roughly a third of a season.
Okay.
Alright. So you've got a couple recruits after just entering fall 1457. It's all up to you how much you want to recruit. Obviously, the more ghouls you get, the harder it's going to be to manage, but you would have a greater fighting force. So there's all the pros and cons of having a growing ghoul army that you would expect. So it's totally up to you, and how long you want to spend and how long you want to deal with balancing all that.
After getting started, the next goal would be to pick out suitable leaders from among them and have them actually pick out those of the criminal element to continue getting non-gold gangs together.
And have them in turn promise more silver.
Yeah, hopefully at this point the ghouls will be blood bonded and enslaved to the blood, so...
Absolutely. They still say that they're doing this for the coin, but they can't help but want to be around you more. Right now you have 2 of them, and you're not trying to get any more ghouls at this point, you just want them to recruit mortals.
Yeah, she'll start having those 2 recruit mortals, and she'll actually switch her focus to looking for a coterie.
Okay. So that's what they will focus on. And how do you want to recruit a coterie?
We'll start in London. And are there coteries formed already that are just looking for something to do?
There are coteries remaining in London. They're the ones that didn't bite so quickly when they heard about rushing into a warren that Nosferatu used to have as a home and trying to wipe them out and secure it. That sounded less than great. So you've got a little bit more of the wily neonates and Ancilla left.
How do they look on a combat skill?
You have to imagine at least some of them can hold themselves in a fight. You see some of them bearing arms, swords and axes. But not all of them are men. You aren't gonna know exactly how well they fight without interviewing all of London, but they've certainly survived this long enough to know that going into the Nosferatu warrens is not healthy.
She'll convince who she can of a much less dangerous but still expedition that would be filled with blood, and she'll essentially tell them that there are sites of pagans that if the church found, it would increase the hardship of all the Canaanites within Britain. and that it would be best to seek these out and remove them first.
Are you promising payments or any other incentive?
Of course, she'll levy out boons, as that is the currency.
Okay. That's definitely worth something, especially from an Ancilla. I'll take another manipulation expression. Difficulty will be 7 here. These neonates are a little bit more cautious.
Are we meeting in, well, I assume Elysium, yes?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'm going to wrap up the session after we resolve this. Alright, 1 success. You will find a relatively small group of neonates, 3 vampires, cunning enough to know how to survive. They find interest in your offer. Certainly a boon from an Ancilla won't go unnoticed. They agreed to look into this site for you. Meanwhile, your 2 ghouls, these thugs, Thug 1 and Thug 2, over this following month, will have successfully recruited, we'll say, another dozen brawlers, looters from battlefields, and thugs just like them, brawlers that are probably more used to stabbing people in the back and taking their coin purses. I think maybe there's a couple of rapists probably in here somewhere. This is definitely the scum and villainy of London.
Katya is happy with this. How long have you said it would be?
By the end of this, it's 2 months since you began all this. So we're middle fall, middle autumn, 1457.
Without eyes on the actual sites, there's no way of knowing whether or not this is enough, but I definitely feel braver with this amount of numbers.
Alright. And with a burgeoning army of ne'er-do-wells, we will close the scene there and close the session, and we'll pick it up again next week.